A young couple relaxing by the pool is startled to find an eerie mist forming around them. At first, they think it's just ordinary fog, but as they prepare to leave, a blood-curdling scream echoes from the upstairs balcony. When they sneak onto the rooftop to investigate, they are instantly killed by the mist, their gruesome fate beyond description. This is the chilling premise of Trapped In, the latest American horror movie of 2024. A strange, deadly mist emerges from the forest. Anyone who steps into it dies instantly, their bodies violently torn apart. The story begins during a cycling training session. In the mountainous regions of Texas, a cycling team is undergoing intensive training to prepare for the upcoming National Mountain Biking Championship in 3 weeks. Connor and his close friend Greg are part of the team. As Connor adjusts his bike, a girl arrives at the rental lodge where they are staying. Connor initially assumes she's another cyclist, but after a brief chat, he learns she's Greg's girlfriend, Andrea. Though Connor feels a pang of disappointment, he quickly masks it and warmly helps Andrea with her luggage. The team, impressed by Andrea's beauty, can't help but feel a little envious. After a brief rest, the team sets out for their first training session, a grueling 10-kilometer ride to the mountain summit. The uphill journey proves challenging, and the team spreads out to conserve energy. On a downhill stretch, Greg loses control and crashes. Despite Greg lying injured on the roadside, the other team members don't stop to help, telling him to stay put and wait for the coach. Eventually, Connor and the coach arrive. Seeing Greg's condition, Connor rushes to help. Greg is severely injured, struggling even to stand. Given his condition, the coach decides to take him back down the mountain. As they turn back, none of them notice the thick mist rising from a distant valley. Birds, startled by the mist, scatter in panic. When Andrea learns about Greg's injury, she quickly prepares alcohol wipes to clean his wounds. The coach suggests taking Greg to the hospital for x-rays, but Greg insists he's fine and just needs to rest. As the group tends to Greg's wounds, Connor notices a breaking news report on TV. The broadcast warns of a strange mist in the mountains, with reports of people who entered it being brutally killed. Police are on the scene, investigating what they suspect to be a violent attack. Authorities urge residents to stay indoors and lock their doors and windows. Hearing this, everyone is stunned. The coach remembers that the mist's location overlaps with their training route. He rushes back up the mountain in his car to gather the team, but when he arrives at the rendezvous point, no one is there. Worried, he drives back down to check the base camp, but the cyclists are nowhere to be found. Returning to the lodge, the coach calls the police. Before the call goes through, another emergency news bulletin interrupts the broadcast. The report claims the victims in the mist died due to a virus. The coach, now visibly shaken, tries to alert the authorities again, but the ground suddenly begins to tremble. The tremor is brief, but before they can comprehend what's happening, there's a loud knock at the door. Connor cautiously peeks through the small window on the door, but sees nothing outside.
You see anything?
Please! Please! Hurry!
Looking at the anxious woman, the coach tried to open the door but was stopped by Connor and the others. Connor talked about the news earlier, and in case the woman was infected, they would also be implicated. As they debate, the woman suddenly disappears. Moments later, knocking sounds come from the backyard. The group moves to the living room and finds the woman now at the back door. While the coach hesitates to open the door, they notice a white mist creeping toward the pool. Despite the mist, the coach opens the door. Before the woman can say a word, she suddenly coughs up blood and collapses. Assuming she's infected, the group quickly pushes her back outside. The coach tries to call the authorities again, but they realize their phones have no signal, likely disrupted by the earlier earthquake. The lingering virus outside keeps everyone from daring to leave the house. The group huddles inside, waiting anxiously as night falls. Cruz and his friend Stefan, unable to bear the isolation any longer, decide to step outside and find nothing unusual. The pair light a fire on the balcony, hoping it will attract rescuers. Unbeknownst to them, a tendril of white mist begins creeping onto the balcony.
Yo, I can't move!
Hearing their screams, Connor and the coach rush outside, only to witness the mist taking on humanoid form and brutally killing Cruz and Stefan. Strangely, the mist seems to sense the people inside the house, but does not enter. Connor speculates that the mist acts as a medium for these creatures and that physical barriers prevent them from passing through. It becomes clear that anyone stepping into the mist is killed by these entities. After an agonizing night, dawn finally breaks. Connor digs a pit to bury Cruz and Stefan. Back inside, he finds the coach and Greg discussing their next steps. The coach suggests driving down the mountain for help, but Greg argues it's too dangerous. Just because the mist can't enter the house doesn't mean it can't penetrate a car. If they encounter the mist while driving, they're as good as dead. Greg theorizes that the mist might not be limited to the mountains. It could have spread across the entire planet. Connor and Andrea agree with Greg's reasoning. If there were rescue teams, communication wouldn't have been cut off. This likely means the entire Earth has been overtaken by the mist. The 4 survivors stay at the lodge, stranded halfway up the mountain for half a month. During this time, neither communication nor electricity is restored, confirming Greg's theory. But staying in hiding isn't sustainable. They are running out of food, and Greg's wound has become infected. If Greg doesn't get medical attention soon, he might not survive. Finally, the coach decides to venture out to look for supplies. He recalls another house not far from the lodge and hopes it might have food or medicine. Under the cover of night, the coach and Connor hike down the mountain. After about 10 minutes of walking, they find the house. The house is pitch black, appearing abandoned. Assuming the residents perished in the disaster, they search the place and find some food in the fridge. As they pack up the supplies, a man suddenly appears behind them. The coach tries to explain their presence, but the man, mistaking them for burglars, doesn't listen. As tensions escalate, the ground begins to tremble again. In the chaos, the coach grabs the man's shotgun. During the struggle, the gun accidentally discharges, killing the man. Connor criticizes the coach for killing him, but the coach defends his actions, arguing that anyone would panic in such a situation. Connor reluctantly agrees, and they return to the lodge with the supplies. Shaken by the previous night's events, Connor struggles to process what happened. Andrea uses the supplies to prepare a meal, but during dinner, the group is horrified to find that the coach has mysteriously died outside the house. Before they can react, a patch of white mist drifts toward them, forcing them to retreat indoors.
Go, 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 go. Come on! Just keep moving!
Another month passes. No rescue comes, and the group's supplies are completely depleted. Greg's condition worsens. His entire back is rotting from the infection. Connor decides they can't wait any longer. He proposes gathering mushrooms from the back of the mountain. Greg worries the mushrooms might be poisonous, but Connor argues they have no other option. The next morning, Connor ventures to the back of the mountain and successfully gathers mushrooms. Fortunately, the mist doesn't appear. Back at the lodge, Connor tests the mushrooms for safety, and finding them edible, cooks them for the group. The mushrooms bring a brief moment of happiness to the starving trio. Suddenly, the television, which had been silent for weeks, flickers back to life. A news anchor explains that the mist isn't a virus, but an invasion by an alien civilization. The government urges everyone to stay indoors and avoid traveling. Even cars cannot protect against the mist. The aliens, hidden within the mist, swarm and kill anyone they detect. The broadcast is brief, and the signal cuts out again. The trio feels fortunate they hadn't attempted to leave. Greg's condition deteriorates further, and he entrusts Andrea's care to Connor, sensing his time is near. Hearing his best friend's final words, Connor feels a wave of despair. Desperate, he suggests driving down the mountain, arguing that if they're fast enough, the mist won't catch them. Greg rejects the idea, insisting it's too risky, and that even if they reach the city, there might not be any doctors left to help. Before Connor can argue further, Greg passes out. Despite their efforts to save him, Greg succumbs to his infection. Connor is devastated by the loss of his friend. 3 months pass. Still no rescue, but the endless supply of mushrooms keeps Connor and Andrea alive. Over time, the two grow closer and eventually begin a relationship. One night by the pool, as they share an intimate moment, they fail to notice the white mist creeping up behind them. Before they can react, a blinding light shines down. Believing their end has come, Connor holds Andrea close, ready to accept their fate, but the light suddenly vanishes. In a daze, Connor recalls past events. The real reason Greg crashed that day was because someone tampered with his bike. Originally, Connor only wanted his friend to withdraw from the race due to an injury, but things took an unexpected turn when they encountered an alien invasion. As it turns out, the coach's death was also his doing. The coach had planned to leave with the supplies, but Connor couldn't bear to leave Andrea behind. The coach discovered Connor's sabotage on Greg's bike and used it as leverage against him. Fearing his secret would be exposed, Connor attacked the coach from behind, killing him. Under the cover of darkness, he dragged the body outside and staged the scene to make it look like the coach had been killed by the mysterious white fog. Realizing the aliens might not actually want to kill them, Connor decides to take a risk. Packing their belongings, he and Andrea leave the lodge. This concludes the full story of Trapped In, the 2024 disaster thriller. That's it for today's share. See you next time.